Hi, I'm Robyn, and I work for Pinnacle Teaching Solutions. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the differences between online lessons and face-to-face lessons. Obviously, there are some advantages, some disadvantages, and some things that aren't actually that different. So starting with advantages, depending on our technological comfort as teachers, there are a lot of new avenues that we can explore. This is the perfect time to do it. We've never been more motivated, there's never been more need, and there's just this explosion of research, tools, and training that's available now. So getting our students access to a greater variety of information and people they wouldn't normally connect with, or possibly a new medium to express themselves in their learning, is more possible than ever. Also, because we have a lot of asynchronous lessons and lessons that are being recorded, students have the opportunity to process over a longer time, rather than just having that in-class experience. They can return to what you've done before, they can take their time to think through their assignments before submitting them as well. And 21st century skills are being brought into your lessons like never before. Students are faced with these new growth challenges like netiquette and how to express themselves in a virtual environment, as well as finding and evaluating different sources of information online. It's made our lessons in some ways more accessible. Maybe your students are in lockdown, or maybe you've always wanted to bring in a guest speaker from a remote location. These are not barriers like they were in face-to-face teaching. Those are just some of the advantages, but I know what you're thinking. It's not all so easy. We are being faced with some really serious challenges as well, especially with regards to technology. Internet bandwidth and the devices that the students have available to them is presenting a new challenge. These are not necessarily solvable, but they don't make it impossible to do some form of online or distance teaching. Being creative with the resources we have is always something we've had to do, and it continues even in this format. Students depend a lot more on feedback and instruction from the teacher when they don't see the teacher present. The teacher isn't in person, so it's easy for the students to feel like they're alone or they're not heard, and the classroom experience just isn't there. So for the teacher, this means really focusing on giving a lot of clear and encouraging and useful messages to the students, giving them feedback on what they're doing, particularly at the beginning of the semester. With this little bit of attention from the teacher, a classroom culture can still develop, but it is going to take a little bit more work. And we know that students might struggle with motivation when they're working from home, completing their work on their own time. Some of the ways to combat this have been giving very clear instructions and deadlines, maybe breaking tasks into smaller chunks, incorporating elements or topics that are really motivating to the students, of course, and possibly using group or pair work to keep each other accountable, not feel alone, and to make sure that work keeps getting done. And I think what we may miss as teachers is the opportunity to circulate around a classroom and check progress or answer questions. Leading a live class online is just not going to give us the same insight into each student. Using other assessment tasks then, or having a student complete reflections or maybe a journal that's being shared with you as the teacher might be a way to keep gathering that information on their progress and their reflection on their own process. Finally, we know how tiring it can be to sit for long sessions of video conferencing or even recorded lessons. Breaking learning into smaller chunks is even more needed in an online lesson to give the students a chance to process and cognitively recover from everything they're learning. This doesn't necessarily mean having shorter classes, but definitely breaking it into different sorts of activities with really clear boundaries is going to be very helpful for your students. That said, there are some even more important things we need to keep in mind. In spite of the strange experience that it is to teach online, the reality is that there are challenges in both. There are students who are going to excel and students who are going to struggle. There are teachers who are going to excel and teachers who are going to struggle. And that's not so different between online and face-to-face. But above all that, we still have our core values, perhaps clarity or encouragement or professionalism and our care for our students. So as you go into this next week and you face all the advantages and disadvantages of however you're teaching, take a little inventory for yourself of the values you have in teaching and how those are expressed even now. Thanks for listening.